Let me tell you a story of someone that I had the privilege of leading to Christ. Names, places, and pastor are not the issue, but how she committed her life to Jesus really is. I knew her for over a decade, and I finally asked her, how did it happen? We talked about Jesus a lot, but why did you finally commit your life to him, and then you just stopped living a lifestyle that you knew was destructive? How did all this happen, I asked her. These were her words to me. Pastor Tim, you never told me what I was doing was wrong, but how right Jesus is. You just kept talking about Jesus. What she was saying was, in essence, was that Jesus was so attractive, why would I want anyone or anything else? And that's Paul's message in Ephesians 3 on the 260 journey today. Listen to the apostles' words in verses 7 and 8. This is my life work, helping people understand and respond to this message. It came as a sheer gift to me, a real surprise, God handling all the details. When it came to presenting the message to people who had no background in God's message, God's way, I was the least qualified of any of the available Christians. God saw to it that I was equipped, but you can be sure that it had nothing to do with my natural abilities. And so here I am preaching and writing about things that are over my head, the inexhaustible riches and generosity of Christ. The New American Standard says the unfathomable riches of Christ. D. Martin Lloyd-Jones, in his book, The Work of Christ, says this: a great danger confronting us all at the present time is to keep on talking about Christianity instead of talking about Jesus. Paul said, let's talk about Jesus. Christianity has never been about encountering the right church, but the right person. Telling people how amazing Jesus seems to be what Paul said he was called to do. I know sin is awful. I know sin is horrible, but sin really speaks for itself through its consequences. Our culture may not call it sin, but they know consequences for wrong actions. Here's my plea that I think Paul is giving us. We live in a society and a time that has so misinterpreted and misrepresented Jesus. So think about it. Why would I want to make the bulk of my message and preaching about how awful something is when people already know that, but they don't realize how wonderful Jesus is? Or as Paul said in Ephesians 3:8, the inexhaustible riches of the generosity of Christ. I want people to see the real Jesus and know about the real Jesus, not the 21st century Jesus, not the Western Jesus, the denominational Jesus, and not the religious Jesus, but the real Jesus. Dorothy Sayers, who was one of the Inklings with C.S. Lewis at Oxford, which was a club of writers, Tolkien was even part of that group, said these words. Listen to what Sayers said. The people who hanged Christ never accused him of being a bore. On the contrary, they thought him too dynamic to be safe. This has been left for later generations to muffle him up. We have efficiently pared the claws of the Lion of Judah and certified him as a meek and mild and recommended him as a fitting household pet for pious old ladies. Wow. Do you want an impressive record? Someone recently took Jesus and stacked him against the greatest painters, musicians, philosophers. And this is what it said. Socrates taught for 40 years, Plato for 50, Aristotle for 40, and Jesus for only 3. Yet the influence of Christ's 3-year ministry infinitely transcends the impact left by the combined 130 years of teaching from those men who are among the greatest philosophers of all antiquity. Jesus painted no pictures, yet some of the finest paintings from Raphael, Michelangelo, Da Vinci received their inspiration from him. Jesus wrote no poetry, but Dante and Milton and scores of the world's greatest poets were inspired by him. Jesus composed no music, but still Haydn and Handel, Beethoven and Bach and Mendelssohn reached the highest perfection of melody in the hymns, symphonies, and oratorios that they composed of his praise. Every sphere of human greatness has been enriched by the humble carpenter of Nazareth. His unique contribution to the race of humans is the salvation of the soul. Philosophy couldn't accomplish that, nor art, nor literature, nor music. Only Jesus Christ can break the enslaving chains of sin and Satan. He alone can speak peace to the human heart, strengthen the weak, and give life to those who are spiritually dead. Listen, I remember when Jay Leno was doing The Tonight Show. I'm old enough to remember when it was Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. Now Leno just drives expensive cars, but his anticipated segment each week was always Man on the Street, where they would ask people questions that they thought everyone should know and be familiar with. Jay one time did it on the Bible, and it went like this. One night he cornered some young people and asked them these questions about the Word of God. Can you name one of the 10 commandments? He asked 2 college-age women. Their reply, freedom of speech. Then Leno said to another, complete this sentence. Let he who is without sin, her response was, have a good time. Mr. Leno then turned to a young man and asked, who according to the Bible was eaten by a whale? The confident answer said, Pinocchio. C.S. Lewis is considered to be one of the most influential authors of the 20th century. How he went from atheism to his relationship with Christ is what Paul was reminding us in Ephesians chapter 3. C.S. Lewis was able to put aside the contemporary and the religious Jesus and come to terms with the real Jesus. That's why his words from Mere Christianity are so important to help us remember how important Paul's plea to Christians to tell people about Jesus, the real Jesus. Listen to C.S. Lewis. I'm trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing Lewis says we cannot say. A man who is merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with the man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, a madman, or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come away with any patronizing nonsense about him being some great human teacher. He's not left that option open to us, and he never intended to. Thanks for joining the 260 Journey.